You ever driven through the dark for so long that the road stops feeling real? Where the only sound is the steady hum of your engine, and the world outside your windshield looks frozen in time. Truckers know that feeling. The endless highway, the long nights, the things that move out there when no one else is watching. Tonight, we're diving into 3 true overnight trucking horror stories. Stories from the open road where headlights can't reach, and where silence has a sound of its own. So settle in. Turn down the lights. And listen closely, because the road gets lonelier the longer you drive. Our first story comes from a trucker who thought he was just making another midnight delivery. Until a shadow on the roadside began to follow him. This is The Stranger on Route 76. Story 1, The Stranger on Route 76. Underscore 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 un. You spend enough nights on the road, and the highway starts to whisper back to you. Most of the time, it's nothing more than wind slipping through the mirrors, or the hum of tires against asphalt, the kind of rhythm that rocks you into that strange half-awake trance. But every now and then, something else happens. Something that makes you realize you're not as alone out there as you think. I've been driving trucks for over 20 years. Hauled everything from furniture to frozen food across every corner of the states. I've driven through snow, sleet, sandstorms, and fog so thick you could lose sight of your own headlights. And I've seen things I can't explain. But there's one night I'll never forget. It happened on Route 76 somewhere between Amarillo and Tulsa. A long, lonely stretch of road that doesn't get much traffic after dark. Underscore 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 run. The start of the run. It was late October, maybe around 2 o'clock in the morning. The kind of night where the moon hangs low and yellow, and the air feels too still, like the world is holding its breath. I was hauling a half-empty trailer of dry goods for a run that had taken longer than planned. The radio had long since given up, and my only company was the rattle of the cab and the steady hum of the diesel engine. I'd been driving for almost 9 hours straight. My coffee had gone cold. My eyes were starting to blur, but I wasn't tired, not exactly. It was more like my body was running on muscle memory. There's a rhythm to night driving. Your thoughts drift. The world narrows down to the soft glow of your dashboard and the endless white lines pulling you forward. And then I saw him. Underscore 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 run. To the stranger. At first, I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. Up ahead, in the wash of my headlights, stood a man on the shoulder of the road. No car in sight. Just him. He was dressed in dark clothes, a heavy coat, jeans, boots. He had his thumb out, like he was hitchhiking. That alone was strange. I hadn't seen another vehicle for over an hour, and this was the kind of stretch you didn't walk unless you had a death wish. As I got closer, I eased off the gas, trying to get a better look. The man didn't move. He just stood there, still as a fence post, facing me. When my headlights hit his face, my stomach dropped. He was pale, not sickly, but washed out, like someone who hadn't seen sunlight in years. His eyes caught the light just right, two flat, reflective circles. Like a cat's. I drove past him, and for a second, I thought about stopping. I really did. I'd picked up hitchhikers before, usually just broke down travelers or runaways. But something about this man didn't feel right. As my trailer passed, I checked my mirrors. He was gone. Not walking. Not fading into the dark. Just gone. Underscore 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 un. 3. The rest stop. About 30 miles later, I pulled into a small rest area. It was one of those older ones, cracked pavement, flickering lights, vending machines that hadn't worked since the 90s. There was one other truck parked there, engine idling, but no sign of the driver. I parked, killed the lights, and stepped out to stretch my legs. The night air was cold and damp, and the smell of diesel hung heavy. As I walked toward the vending machine, I heard it faint at first, but clear. Footsteps. Slow, steady, crunching against the gravel behind me. I turned, expecting to see another driver. No one was there. The footsteps stopped the instant I looked back. Now, I'm not the type to spook easy. You can't be in this job. But I'll admit, the hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. I grabbed a stale candy bar from the machine and went back to my cab, telling myself it was probably an echo. Sound carries weird out in the open. When I climbed into the truck and shut the door, the inside felt too quiet, like the air itself was holding still. Then I heard it again. Tap. 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 3 soft knocks on the passenger side door. My heart thudded once, hard enough to make my chest hurt. I turned my head slow, careful. There was someone standing outside the window. It was him. The same man I'd seen on the road. Underscore 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 un. 4. The passenger. He was closer now, his face half lit by the orange glow of the lot's single working light. He didn't say anything. Didn't move. Just stared at me through the glass. I reached for the ignition, ready to fire up the truck and peel out of there. But before I could, he lifted his hand, slow and deliberate, and pointed toward the passenger seat. He wanted me to let him in. I shook my head. No way. My mouth was too dry to speak. He lowered his arm and took a step back into the shadows. I blinked and he was gone. Not walking away, not fading into darkness, just gone. I sat there for a long time, listening to my heartbeat echo inside the cab. Eventually, I convinced myself I was hallucinating from exhaustion. I started the engine, cranked up the heat, and pulled back onto the road. But something in me had changed. I kept checking the mirrors. Every reflective surface, the glass, the gauges I half expected to see him sitting beside me. Underscore 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 un. 5. The fog. The fog rolled in around 4 a.m. Thick, white, and fast like smoke pouring across the highway. It swallowed the road in seconds, cutting my visibility down to almost nothing. I slowed to 30, hugging the right lane, trying to stay between the reflectors. That's when I saw the tail lights. 2 red orbs glowing in the mist ahead. Another truck, same direction, maybe a mile up. I felt a little relief knowing someone else was out here. But as I got closer, something didn't look right. The truck wasn't moving at a steady pace. It would speed up, then slow down, drifting slightly side to side like whoever was driving was drunk or half asleep. I kept my distance. After a few minutes, I realized there was no license plate light. No company markings. Just a dark, featureless rig moving through the fog. And then I saw it. In the reflection of my headlights, through the cab's back window, there was a figure. Someone sitting in the passenger seat, head turned toward me. It was him. The same pale face. The same hollow eyes catching the light. I slammed on the brakes so hard the trailer fishtailed behind me. My coffee flew out of the cup holder and hit the dash. When the truck steadied, I looked back up. The tail lights were gone. No sign of the truck. No tire tracks in the fog. Nothing. Just empty highway. Underscore 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 un. 6. The bridge. About 10 miles later, I reached a narrow steel bridge. It crossed a small river that cut through the woods, and as I rolled over it, the fog cleared just enough to see the other side. There, standing by the guardrail, was a figure. Him again. I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed the brakes and brought the truck to a stop right there on the bridge. The figure didn't move. I threw open the door, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped down onto the road. The air was freezing, the metal beneath my boots slick with dew. "Hey!" I shouted. My voice echoed down the river valley. No answer. I shined the light across the bridge. Empty. No man. No footprints. Nothing but the sound of the river and the distant hum of my idling engine. When I climbed back into the cab, my hands were shaking. I locked the doors, turned the heater on full blast, and forced myself to drive until sunrise. Underscore 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 un. 7. The gas station. The next morning, I stopped at a truck stop outside Tulsa. I must have looked like hell, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling. The clerk behind the counter asked if I was all right. I told him I'd had a rough night on Route 76. The guy just nodded, slow, like he'd heard it before. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You saw him, didn't you?" I froze. "Saw who?" He leaned on the counter, eyes drifting toward the highway. The hitchhiker. Been stories about him for years. Shows up at night, out by mile marker 112. Drivers pick him up sometimes, say he never makes it to the next stop. I didn't say anything. Just stared at him. The clerk went on, almost whispering now. Back in the 80s, there was an accident out there. A driver fell asleep and hit a man walking along the road. Killed him instantly. They say the trucker kept driving for another 20 miles before he realized what he'd done. When he came back, there was no body. Just a coat and a pair of boots by the side of the road. He looked at me, like he was trying to decide if I'd believe him. Some folks say that man's still looking for a ride home. Underscore 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 un. 8. The final sight. I finished my run that day in silence. Didn't play the radio. Didn't talk to anyone on the CB. Just drove, trying to shake the feeling that something was still in the cab with me. That night, I parked at a well-lit truck plaza, double-checked the locks, and crawled into the sleeper. I must have dozed off, because I woke up around 2:30 a.m. to the sound of someone knocking on the door. 3 soft taps. Exactly the same as before. I froze. Didn't move, didn't breathe. Then I heard his voice. "Can you give me a ride?" It was low and distant, like it was coming through the walls. I didn't answer. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding in my throat. After a few seconds, the knocking stopped. The air felt lighter again. When I finally worked up the nerve to look out the window, there was no one there. Just the dark reflection of my own face staring back at me. Underscore 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 un. 9. The aftermath. It's been years since that night. I still drive, though I avoid Route 76 when I can. Every now and then, I'll hear another trucker mention it over the CB. Someone saw a man on the shoulder. Someone's radio went dead at mile marker 112. And once, just once, I heard a voice come through the static. It wasn't a normal transmission. It was quiet, distant. And it said, "Can you give me a ride?" Underscore 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 un. 10. Reflection. People always ask if I believe in ghosts. I used to say no. Now, I just tell them this. When you're out there on the highway, alone in the dark, rolling through miles of empty land, keep your eyes on the road, and don't ever stop for anyone who doesn't cast a shadow. Because sometimes, the road remembers. And sometimes, it wants to bring something back. Sometimes, the highway doesn't scare you, it's the places where you stop that do. Our next driver found himself trapped in a storm, at a rest stop that should have been empty. But wasn't. This is the long haul through Devil's Pass. Story 2, The Long Haul Through Devil's Pass. underscore 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 un. You hear a lot of stories on the road: ghost towns, phantom lights, weird things that happen on long hauls when it's just you and the hum of the engine. But there's one story I never tell on the CB anymore. Because it's not just a story. It's something that happened to me, one night, deep in the mountains of Colorado, a place the locals call Devil's Pass. I didn't know the name when I took that route. If I had, I'd have gone the long way around. Underscore 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 un. 1. The route no one wanted. It was a last-minute haul: frozen meats from Denver to Salt Lake. Dispatch told me it had to be there by morning, so I decided to run it overnight. The other drivers in the lot kept quiet when I mentioned the route. One of them, an older guy named Larry, just looked up from his coffee and said, "Don't take the pass if you can help it. Fog gets thick up there. Bad wrecks." I laughed it off. I've driven through worse. Snow, ice, blackouts, none of it scared me much. But I should have listened. Underscore 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 un. 2. Into the mountains. I hit the foothills around midnight. The air was clean and cold, the stars sharp as nails above the ridge. The road wound higher, tighter. The kind that keeps you alert whether you want to be or not. Around 1:30, the fog started. Not soft or rolling sudden. 1 minute the world was clear, the next it was like driving into milk. My high beams turned it into a glowing wall, so I switched to low. My world shrank down to the white lines and the quiet hum of the wheels. No other cars. No signs. Just fog, pine, and the faint sound of my own breath. Then, through the static of my CB, a voice crackled. "Anyone out there on 76 West? You seeing this?" The number caught me off guard. Route 76 didn't run through Colorado. But the voice was clear, like it was right beside me. I reached for the mic. "Breaker, this is Red Falcon. I think you got the wrong channel. I'm on 40 through the pass." No reply. Just soft static, and then a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." I turned off the CB. Underscore 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 un. 3. The girl on the curve. About an hour later, I reached a stretch of road that cut along a steep drop. The fog was so thick it looked solid. That's when I saw her. A girl. Maybe 19 or 20. Standing right on the shoulder. She wore a white dress, old-fashioned, like something out of the 1950s. Her hair was dark, wet from the mist. She raised her arm, waving me down. Now, I've stopped for stranded drivers before. Out there, miles from anywhere, you don't leave someone on the road at night. I pulled over, hazard lights flashing. She didn't move at first. Just stood there in the red glow of my tail lights, staring. Then, slowly, she came toward the cab. Her face came into view pale, expressionless, eyes so dark I couldn't tell where the pupils ended. When she reached my door, she said, softly, "Can you take me home?" Her voice was so calm, so steady, it made the hair on my arms stand up. I hesitated. "Where do you live?" She pointed up ahead, into the fog. "Just down the road." Something about her tone made me uneasy, but I nodded and unlocked the passenger door. She climbed in silently, her hands folded in her lap. Underscore 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 un. For the ride. For the first few miles, she didn't say a word. I kept my eyes on the road, trying not to glance too much at her. She wasn't wet anymore. I noticed that. Her hair was dry now, perfectly neat, like she'd never been in the mist at all. "You sure this is the right way?" I asked after a while. She smiled faintly. "You'll see it soon." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Something cold brushed my arm, a chill that went through my jacket like ice water. I looked down. Her hand was resting on the seat between us, pale and still. Too still. I looked back up at the road and the fog opened for just a second. There was a sharp curve ahead, a blind turn with no guardrail. I slammed on the brakes. The truck shuddered, the trailer fishtailed, and the cab lurched to a stop just feet from the edge. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like my ribs would crack. I turned to her, ready to ask if she was okay. But she was gone. The seat was empty. Underscore 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 un. 5. The photograph. I sat there, shaking, the engine idling. My eyes darted to the passenger seat, and that's when I saw it. A small photograph. It was black and white, edges curled with age. It showed a young woman standing beside a 50s style car. The same white dress. The same dark hair. Scrawled on the back, in faded ink, were 3 words. "Found me again." I threw the picture onto the dashboard and looked around. Nothing but fog and forest. I pressed the pedal, eager to get out of there, but the road ahead was twisted with switchbacks. Every time I rounded a bend, I half expected to see her again. And then, I did. She was standing in the middle of the road. Not a reflection. Not a trick of the lights. Right there, where my headlights hit, same white dress, same empty eyes. Only this time, her head was tilted just slightly. Like she was listening. Underscore 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 un. 6. The shadow truck. I swerved to avoid her. The tires screamed against the asphalt, and that's when I saw headlights in the fog behind me. Another truck. I hadn't seen one in hours, and suddenly there it was, closing in fast. The lights were too high, too bright, like they didn't belong to any rig I'd ever seen. I grabbed the CB again, switched channels, called out, "Breaker, who's behind me?" No answer. The headlights grew closer, so close they filled my mirrors with white. I could feel the rumble of another engine behind me, matching my speed. But the fog was too thick to make out any details. No grille, no cab, just two lights and the low growl of an engine. Then the voice came again through my CB, through the static. "You shouldn't have picked her up." I slammed the CB off again. The lights stayed behind me for another few miles, then faded like someone flipped a switch. When I looked again, there was nothing there. Underscore 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 un. 7. The house that wasn't there. After what felt like forever, the fog began to thin. I saw a faint light ahead, a porch light, glowing through the trees. "A house," the girl had said, "just down the road." Maybe that was it. I slowed down, heart hammering. Pulled over beside the driveway and shut off the engine. The house looked old but lived in. Porch swing, wood siding, curtains in the windows. I stepped out, photograph in hand, and walked up to the door. Before I could knock, the door opened. An elderly woman stood there, wrapped in a shawl. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. "Ma'am," I said, holding out the photo, "does this girl live here?" She looked at the photo, and her face went pale. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "She was on the road. Said she needed a ride home." The woman's lip trembled. "She's my daughter. She died here in 1957. The fog was bad that night. Truck driver missed the curve." I stared at her. I saw her. She was. But when I looked back toward my truck, the fog had rolled in again, thick, fast, swallowing the road whole. When I turned around, the house was gone. Just trees. And silence. Underscore 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 un. 8. The descent. I don't remember the next few miles. I drove on autopilot, headlights cutting through the white void. My hands were numb on the wheel, and the air inside the cab felt colder with every passing minute. Then, out of nowhere, my radio flicked on, not the CB, the radio. It was playing an old song, one I hadn't heard in decades. Musical note, "I'll be seeing you." The same kind of song that might have played in that photo's time. My dashboard lights flickered. The engine coughed once, twice. And then, from the passenger side, I heard it. A whisper. Soft. Close. "Thank you for the ride." I turned, slowly, and she was sitting there again. The girl. Only now, her skin was grey, her dress torn and soaked in something dark. Her head tilted slightly, eyes hollow but fixed on me. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. She smiled a faint, broken smile and said, "I'm home." Then she vanished. The photograph fell from the dashboard into my lap. underscore 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 un. 9. The end of the pass. I made it to Salt Lake by dawn. Pulled into the lot, shut off the truck, and just sat there shaking. When I finally unloaded, I checked the cab again. No trace of her. Except the photo. Only now, the writing on the back had changed. It didn't say "found me again." It said, "Thank you." I keep it in my glove compartment, taped shut in an envelope. I've thought about burning it, but I can't. Part of me feels like she's still out there, that if I destroy it, I might see her again on some foggy night, asking for another ride. Underscore 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 un. 10. Reflection. People think the road's lonely. But it's not. There are things out there that travel with you, echoes, memories, maybe ghosts that never made it home. So if you're ever driving through the mountains, and the fog gets thick enough that you can't see more than a few feet ahead, and you see a girl in a white dress, waving you down, keep driving. Because not every passenger you pick up on those long hauls is still alive. The last story tonight comes from a man who's been trucking for over 15 years. He's seen a lot on the road, but one night, on a stretch of desert highway, he saw something that's haunted him ever since. This is the silent CB on Highway 191. Story 3. The silent CB on Highway 191. They say every trucker has one story they don't tell unless the coffee's strong and the lights are still on. The kind that starts out ordinary, just another run, another night, but ends with something you can't explain, no matter how many years pass. This is mine. And it happened on a lonely desert stretch of Highway 191, somewhere between Gallup, New Mexico, and the Arizona border. Underscore 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 un. 1. The night shift. It was early summer, 2012. I'd been running long haul for a small freight outfit out of Albuquerque, nothing special, just crates of auto parts heading west. I left the yard just before midnight, planning to cross into Arizona before dawn. The road was dry, the sky full of stars, and the air had that still, quiet weight it gets in the desert after dark. I liked driving at night. The emptiness, the rhythm, the hum of tires against the asphalt, it felt like the world shrank down to me, the truck, and the road. That night, everything felt too still. The CB radio, usually alive with chatter from other rigs, was silent. Not even the faint crackle of static. That kind of silence gets under your skin after a while. Underscore 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 un. 2. The voice in the static. A few hours in, I hit a long, straight stretch through the desert flats. The horizon was nothing but black, and my high beams faded into emptiness. Then the CB flickered. A faint hiss. A pop. Then. Breaker, any drivers out there? It was a man's voice, calm but strained, like he'd been driving too long. I grabbed my mic. Copy that. This is Lone Coyote, westbound on 191. Go ahead. A pause. Then. You ever feel like the road's longer than it should be? I frowned. Say again. Been drivin' 3 hours past the same mile marker. Ain't right. Before I could respond, the channel went dead. I checked my GPS working fine. My odometer was ticking normally. Everything looked right. But I couldn't shake that uneasy chill. Every so often, I glanced at the mile markers. And I swear I saw the same one twice. Underscore 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 un. 3. The truck stopped that wasn't there. Around 3 a.m., my fuel light came on. The map showed a truck stop about 10 miles ahead, an old Phillips 66 that some drivers still used. I spotted it soon after, flickering neon lights, a single pump, and a diner beside it. I pulled in, the gravel crunching under my tires. The place looked deserted. No cars. No lights inside the diner. But the sign above the pump still glowed faintly, open 24 hours. I shut off the engine and climbed out, stretching my legs. The air was warm, dry, and smelled faintly of dust and oil. As I started refueling, I heard something, a low hum, steady and mechanical. At first, I thought it was another truck approaching. But the sound didn't move. It just hung there, deep and vibrating in the air. Then the lights above the pump flickered once, twice, and went out. The only illumination came from my own headlights, throwing long shadows across the empty lot. And then, in the reflection of the diner window, I saw movement. A figure standing inside. Underscore 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 un. For the man in the diner. He was tall, wearing a trucker's jacket, maybe in his 40s. He stood behind the counter, motionless. I called out, "Hey! You open?" But he didn't respond. I walked to the window, trying to see inside. The interior was dim, covered in dust. The counter, the booths, even the napkin dispensers, they all looked like they hadn't been touched in years. But the man was there. Standing behind the counter. Staring straight at me. I stepped back, my heart thudding. He didn't move, didn't blink. I turned to go back to my truck and the humming sound stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than before. I looked over my shoulder one last time. The diner was empty. No man. No light. Just an old building and my reflection in the glass. Underscore 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 un. 5. The voice returns. I climbed back into my cab, trying to laugh it off. Maybe I was overtired, maybe the heat was getting to me. But when I turned the key, the CB came alive again. Static, then that same voice. "Don't stop there." I froze. "You stopped, didn't you?" I grabbed the mic, trying to steady my voice. "Who is this?" The line hissed, then another voice broke through, not the same one. This one was older, slower. "Driver, you out by mile marker 219. I checked the side mirror. Sure enough, the sign by the road read 219. I pressed the mic again. "Yeah. That's me. You see me? You need to leave. Right now." The static cracked again, loud enough to make me flinch. When it cleared, both voices were gone. The CB stayed dead the rest of the night. Underscore 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 un. 6. The Ghost Convoy. Back on the highway, I kept my speed steady, eyes locked on the asphalt. I told myself I'd make it to the next real stop before sunrise. Then, in the distance, I saw headlights. 3 of them. Big rigs, rolling side by side in perfect sync. Their lights cut through the darkness like white fire. Relieved, I keyed my CB again. "Westbound convoy, this is Lone Coyote behind you. You guys headed toward Flagstaff?" No answer. I sped up a little, closing the distance. But as I got closer, something was wrong. Their tail lights didn't flicker with bumps. Their tires didn't kick up any dust. And they were silent. No engine noise. No hum of wheels. Just 3 sets of lights gliding through the darkness ahead of me. Then one of them swerved hard straight off the road and vanished into the desert. No crash. No dust cloud. Just gone. The other 2 kept going like nothing happened. That's when I floored it. Underscore 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 un. 7. The detour. By 4 a.m., the sky started to pale, a thin line of gray over the horizon. I saw a green exit sign for a detour old 191 bypass. I didn't remember it being on the map, but I was too shaken to care. The ramp curved sharply, leading down a narrow 2-lane road flanked by rock and scrub. After a few miles, I noticed something strange. The odometer wasn't moving. I glanced at the clock. 4:12 a.m. I drove for what felt like half an hour. Checked again, still 4:12. That's when I realized, I hadn't passed a single landmark, not even a road marker. And the fog, thick, brownish, was rising from the desert floor. Underscore 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 un. 8. The other driver. Out of nowhere, headlights appeared in my mirror, a single truck following close behind. Relief washed over me. I slowed down a little, hoping to flag him for a radio check. He pulled alongside me, same model rig, same trailer type, and when I looked into his cab, I nearly lost control of the wheel. It was me. Same hat. Same jacket. Same tired face. He looked over, eyes hollow, mouth moving silently. And then he was gone. The fog cleared, and the road was empty again. My clock now read 5:46. I'd lost over an hour. Underscore 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 un. 9. The abandoned gas pump. When the sun finally came up, I spotted another gas station in the distance. This one looked newer, with a bright red sign and shiny pumps. I pulled in, shaking, exhausted. A young man in a uniform came out, wiping his hands on a rag. "Morning, driver. Long night." "You could say that," I said. "Been through some weird stuff on 191. Saw an old diner out there, thought it was still open." He frowned. "Diner? Yeah. Phillips 66 with a little cafe. Neon sign." The kid shook his head. "Ain't been one of those out here in 20 years. Burned down back in the 90s. Gas leak killed a driver and the owner both." I stared at him. My throat went dry. "A driver?" "Yeah. Some long-haul guy from New Mexico. They say he stopped there right before the fire started. Whole place went up. Folks around here still talk about hearing his CB some nights." He smiled awkwardly, like it was just a local legend. But I couldn't smile back. I looked toward the road, and in the shimmer of the morning heat, I could have sworn I saw the faint outline of that old diner sign glowing red. Underscore 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 un. 10. The last transmission. I finished fueling up, said my thanks, and got back on the highway. By then, the sky was bright and clear, the desert stretching endless and empty in every direction. The CB stayed quiet the whole way to Flagstaff until just before I pulled into the yard. The speaker crackled once. "Breaker, this is Lone Coyote, you out there?" It was my voice. The same tone, the same phrasing, coming through my own radio. I froze. Didn't answer. After a long pause, the voice came again, softer this time. "Don't stop at the diner." Then nothing but static. Underscore 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 un. 11. Reflection. I've run hundreds of miles since that night. Different routes, different states. But I still avoid 191 whenever I can. Sometimes, late at night, I'll scroll through the channels on my CB just habit. And every once in a while, I'll catch a whisper of that same voice. You ever feel like the road's longer than it should be? When I hear that, I turn the radio off. Because I've learned one thing after all these years. Out there in the dark, between the miles and the fog, not every signal comes from the living. Out there on the highway, the dark feels endless. But every once in a while, you catch something in the corner of your eye, a figure by the road, a face in the mirror, a sound that doesn't belong. Maybe it's just your mind playing tricks on you after too many sleepless nights. Or maybe, the road keeps its own kind of secrets. If you enjoyed these overnight trucking horror stories, don't forget to subscribe and join us again for more true scary stories for sleep. Until next time, drive safe, keep your eyes on the road, and whatever you do, don't look too long in the rear view.